A job is somewhere that most everyone assumes they're safe, especially if it's an industry like retail. You should be able to go to your job and come home at the end of the day knowing you put in a hard day's work and not worry about danger lurking around the corner. But what happens when the place you rely on for a living turns out to be the place of your demise? And what's worse? What if your killer has an excuse that the law defends? Unfortunately, this was the sad case of Alisha Bromfield, and it launched a wave of change across the country. Let's learn about her tragic saga and what kind of ripple effect it had in 32 states. Alisha Bromfield was a 21-year-old student studying forensic science at Western Illinois University in Macomb, Illinois. She was only a semester away from graduating with her degree. In August of 2012, she was 6 months pregnant and working at a Home Depot where she had been employed since 2006. Alisha had worked in the garden department since she was 16, and it seemed to be a good job to get her through school. Unfortunately, she worked under a 36-year-old man named Brian Cooper. They seemed to get along well at first, forming what others saw as a casual friendship. Cooper was well liked at the store and appeared friendly, but Alisha's family thought her attitude towards her boss was just self-preservation. They also knew that she was a hard worker and she just wanted to succeed, especially since she was a single mother expecting her first child without the father in the picture. It was no time to be out of work, so even though Cooper's behavior began to change, Alisha played nice with her much older employer to keep the peace. This would soon prove to be the worst mistake of her young life. Though Cooper seemed to most people to be a normal, upstanding guy, there were reports that his treatment of Alisha in particular at work was far from normal. He clearly had a different idea as to what their working relationship consisted of. Over the course of their time together, Cooper would exercise his power over her, denying her requests off for doctor's appointments, and insisting that her job at Home Depot should be the #1 priority. Fairly cruel, considering that Alisha was pregnant, but even more cruel was what he called her in front of customers while on the clock, as well as telling other employees that they were in a relationship and she was his girlfriend. He even insisted they would be going out on dates, but she never took him up on that. Until August 2012, when he made her an offer she couldn't refuse. The summer of 2012. Cooper's sister was getting married in Door County, Wisconsin. He asked Alisha to be his wedding date, and even though the two were never romantically involved, she said yes. When her family was asked why she would agree to go with her boss when she had no interest in him, Alisha said she was worried she'd lose her job. After all, Cooper had already demeaned her when she asked to take much-needed time off for important appointments, so she was concerned that turning him down might mean she was unemployed when her baby arrived. But even with the disturbing comments and behavior he'd made at work, Alisha thought the trip would be harmless, and possibly even get him off her back, making the arrival of her child easier. Cooper made arrangements for them to stay overnight at the Sand Bay Beach Resort, about 4 hours away from where they lived. Alisha told her parents they planned to stay overnight at the hotel with the wedding party after attending the wedding, then be back the next morning. She never returned home. The morning of the wedding, Alisha called her mother and was clearly very upset. She said they were packing up the car to leave even before the ceremony. When Alisha's mother asked how Cooper could do that to his sister, as he was the one walking her down the aisle, a fairly important part of the wedding, Alisha said they'd had a fight. Her mother advised that Alisha let his sister know that Cooper wouldn't be there, and she responded that she had no way of contacting her since she didn't know where his sister was staying. Alarm bells rang off in her mother's head. Weren't they supposed to be staying at the same place as the rest of the wedding party? No, Alisha replied. When her mother texted her later, Alisha said they were staying and the wedding went on as planned. Cooper walked his sister down the aisle, the reception kicked off, and after the champagne toast, he left with Alisha to return to their resort. Little did Alisha know that only hours later, both she and her unborn child would be dead. The morning of August 22, 2012, surveillance video records a man in soaking wet clothes walking into a gas station. This man is Brian Cooper, and he uses the phone inside to call 911. He then, almost calmly, reports a murder. The murder of his wedding date, Alisha Bromfield. When the operator asks if he's sure a murder occurred, he responds yes, because he's the one who committed it. Cooper goes on to explain it happened the previous night. It took place in their hotel room, and worst of all, it was intentional. As Door County deputies prepare to arrest him at the gas station, Cooper unbelievably tells the 911 operator, "I'm a good person, besides what I did last night." Alisha's family is going to flip. Everyone is going to flip. Cooper's confession didn't stop at the 911 call. Once in custody, he told authorities the whole story.
I kind of just jumped on her.
Okay, was she on her back?
She was.
Okay.
Well, no, she was on her side, and then I turned her on her back.
Okay.
And then I jumped her, and she got scared.
So were you on top of her then?
Yeah.
And you kind of straddled over her?
Yeah, and then I just started strangling her.
With your hands?
With my hands.
Though some of it was tainted by his own perception, Cooper said they were co-workers, they were somewhat dating, and he had wanted more, but he was respecting her pregnancy.
I've always wanted more, but I always was respecting her because of her pregnancy.
Yet apparently Alisha had reached her breaking point during their fight earlier that day. He told police that he knew they wouldn't be friends when they got back to work, and that caused him to start drinking once they returned to the resort. Alisha went straight to bed, but Cooper stayed up, getting more intoxicated and more angry as the night went on. He knew he wanted to hurt her and even went so far as to plan out whether he would tie her up with cords.
I don't think I was thinking about killing her right away. I think that was more towards the end.
All the while, Alisha slept nearby, oblivious to the danger she was in. When she woke up a little bit later, Cooper said he tried to mend fences by offering to watch a television show they were both interested in once they got back home on Sunday. Alisha's response was apparently along the lines of they would not be hanging out Sunday or ever again.
Okay, so you asked her about maybe watching a show on Sunday, and what was her response? Like there isn't going to be a Sunday with us?
Right.
This sent Cooper over the edge, and he straddled her on the bed, strangling her for daring to reject him. He admitted that she fought back.
And what did she do? Did she fight back?
She did fight back.
Even biting his finger in a last attempt at survival.
When she bit me finger, then we rolled off the bed.
Unfortunately, he overpowered her and eventually choked the life out of her on the floor of their room at the resort. He then went on to describe some truly horrific things he did to Alisha post-mortem.
After she died, you took off her clothes?
I just wanted to see her naked body.
Just proving that there was a monster living within him all along. Cooper told authorities that after he killed and violated Alisha, he made her a bed on the floor, putting a pillow under her head and covering her body with a blanket. Then, possibly realizing what he'd done, he began to make some different plans. He thought about taking his own life, first with a dull knife and then with a corkscrew. But neither of these plans went through, and he fell asleep in the resort's bathtub. Waking up didn't improve the situation, though. So Cooper drove to a nearby park and swam deep into the bay in an attempt to drown himself. This explains his soaking wet clothes, but apparently life was still worth living. Because he panicked, swam back to shore, and drove to the gas station where he confessed his crimes. After one hung jury, Cooper was sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms in prison for 2 counts of first-degree murder, one for Alisha and another for her unborn baby, as well as an additional 4 years for what he did to Alisha after her murder. While this ruling brought justice to Alisha's family, they felt there was someone else to blame. Alisha and Cooper's place of employment, Home Depot, for allowing him to keep his job when his behavior was so unprofessional and inappropriate. Alisha's mother, Sherry Anisich, pursued Home Depot in court to hold them responsible for their part in the loss of Alisha and her unborn child. Furthermore, she also went after a law on the books that had resulted in Cooper's hung jury, the voluntary intoxication law, which stated that if one is so drunk they're incapacitated during a crime, they cannot be punished for intent. She told reporters she never wanted alcohol to be used as an excuse for something this monstrous ever again. And she was successful. After a tireless crusade, Sherry managed to get the voluntary intoxication law removed as a legal defense, first in Wisconsin, then 31 other states. While it may have been too late for Alisha, she hoped to protect other families from going through what hers did during Cooper's trial. While the tale is obviously a tragic one, what do you think about the laws put in place by the death of Alisha Bromfield? Was the voluntary intoxication law a fair one? Or did it deserve to be removed from the legal defense? Let us know in the comments.